That scene behind you looks really distressing. I mean, the amount of rubbish that's on the side of the streets there. Just how is the clean-up progressing in Lismore?
Look, it is slow going, but it is now a few days in. And yes, I'm on the main street here in Lismore, and just it's lined with really rubbish. But what was furniture, which was paperwork, which was everything that made up these businesses in the main street. And this is just one street in Lismore. This is happening, a repeated scene in dozens, especially in homes in the south, in the north of Lismore. And the clean-up really started for a lot of houses yesterday. People went home for the first time and started cleaning up. And look, this is going to be a huge task. The start is assessing what's inside, is cleaning up. We've already had lots of people here on the main street already go into their businesses. They've got brooms, they've got all sorts of things to start that. But this is just step one. We know that this clean-up here, the enormity of the task ahead is really sinking in, and it's about the recovery and rebuild. And really what happens next is still really quite uncertain here.
And so, Ash, you mentioned that some of those residents are returning to their homes or their businesses for the first time to see that devastation and destruction. How are they coping?
Look, I think there's a sense here, there's been a lot of trauma from what's happened. There's been so many people here that really had to, we spoke to people yesterday that had to scream and then, were rescued. They thought they were going to die inside their houses. And obviously there have been deaths here, 5 in total for the flooding, but a number here in Lismore. So look, there is this devastation here. There's also a sense that people are getting on with it. They have been through floods before. Yes, they have not been as bad as this one, but they know what to do and are hopeful to rebuild. But there is sort of a sense here too that there hasn't been a lot of help coming from government and authorities from the start. There have been these stories on early Monday morning about people ringing the emergency numbers and not getting through, and it was really civilians in their boats that rescued people. And now they feel here there's still all this, all the furniture and things on the street that there haven't been an opportunity to clear that yet. Now, the Premier is on the North Coast and will be in Lismore today to assess. Now, he says he's here to listen and really work out what is needed next. But he is promising that more funding is coming, and the feeling here is that there is more funding needed and really a plan here so that there is not this sense of abandonment, that the government is here and is here to help. So it'll be interesting how the Premier is received today, because there is a lot of frustration, perhaps about the lack of plan, the lack of progress and the lack of help that has been on the ground so far. There has been, difficult conditions in terms of the weather, but the Premier will be here today.
Indeed. Okay, thanks, Ash. Thanks very much for joining us for the latest update there, Ashley Raper. We spoke a little bit earlier about the big task at hand for Lismore residents with the clean-up that is ahead of them.
Yes, and I'm here this morning with Matthew and Narelle Bolton, and they're here in front of their lawn mowing shop and power tool shop. And as you can see, they've really lost a lot here. And I want to ask, obviously it's been a few days now, has the enormity of the clean-up sunk in here?
Oh yeah, and it's going to continue for 2 more weeks, if not months. Our town is shot.
Can you talk us through, when you're watching the rain and the forecast and the Weather Bureau on Sunday night and a Monday morning, really what happened and what you were thinking?
That evening I observed the river heights coming into town. They were 12 metres on 3 rivers and 11 on one. I knew we were in major problems. We came down and emptied another ute load out, and luckily we've got that stock left.
And prior to all of that, we had the flood plan in place. We did everything possible and it still wasn't enough.
Because you were here in 2017, it's just sort of, what was the difference between this flood and last flood? And you had prepared after 2017.
We had. This one was just so much higher. It was so much higher and destructive. It really was.
Now, the Premier Dominic Perrottet is in Lismore today. He will be here. If you had an opportunity to see him in the street, what would you say to him in terms of what is needed right now and going forward?
We need major generators. We need South Lismore to have fresh water. They can't even clean up at the moment. They've got a dribble coming out of a tap because there's no power. And this is the issue. We're looking at 4 weeks minimum of no power. We can't even open as shops.
And do you think, look, there's this huge task in terms of recover and rebuilding, and it's the second time this has happened in such a short amount of time. How do you think Lismore will cope and rebuild?
I don't think they will. A lot of people have given up. I mean, I, for one, woke up and thought, why am I bothering? Why are we still doing this? You know, we're resilient, but how much more can we take? It's devastating, devastating.
We, as a town, we don't need to live on a knife's edge for 6 months a year in cyclone season. This town needs to be moved to Gunnellabar. I'm calling for state and federal investment now. Our council is broke after this. Our council has not enough money to even fix what damage is here.
Yeah, not to mention, you know, the roads, the infrastructure. The town's, it's gone. It's gone. We need help and we need it now.
And just in terms of, do you think you're planning on rebuilding and reopening the shop?
We are, and the reason we're doing that is for the community. I know that they're going to need us, and we want to do everything that we can to help them out. We're all in it together. It's going to be hard.
But do you think a lot of businesses won't return?
They won't. They won't. I mean, and that's where I was at. Why would we bother? But, you know, you wake up one day and that's how you feel. You wake up the next day and you feel different and you want to get stuck in and you want to rebuild. But we're exhausted. We're all so exhausted. So we just see what the next day brings, and that's all we can do.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us this morning, and we wish you all the best in terms of, you know, right now and going into the future. And as you've heard today, the Premier will be here, and he said this trip is about listening and assessing what is needed next. So I think there's a lot for him to take in here on the ground today, and we'll see what comes from that.